Welcome to the Two Wealth Show, a show that shares how you can create real wealth for you and your family. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Bogard, and my co-host is Elizabeth Sickles, aka Super E. I am a real estate note investor, specializing in performing residential real estate debt. I find the deals, acquire them for my own portfolio, as well as educate investors while walking them through the process of owning a real estate note. My co-host Super E, a real estate investor, specializing in short-term rentals and the management of them. She connects investors with short-term tenants and manages everything in between. Our show is sponsored by BrightPath Notes and Elizabeth Maora. You can find out more information by visiting our websites at brightpathnotes.com and elizabethmaora.com. Welcome to episode number 25. Hello, listeners. Hello, viewers. It's almost time for Christmas. Hi, Super E.
Hello. Happy December.
Happy December, yes. We've been toying around with the idea of how we want to do our before Christmas episode. And last year we talked about the 12 debacles of Christmas, where you and I discussed, we went back and forth on just the funny and the odd and the strange and maybe the disastrous things that have gone on with some of our real estate transactions, even over the past year of our careers. And that was kind of fun. So this year's theme, we're going to do All I Want for Christmas is Real Estate. So Elizabeth, what type of real estate do you want for Christmas?
I want more single family houses. Excuse me.
Okay. Single family houses for the purposes of short-term rental?
Yes. And traditional rental.
Okay. Are you going to keep to the Indianapolis area?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
And also, actually, I should say, too, the other thing that I want, because I did buy my first note this year from Justin, I do want more notes.
Okay.
All about being passive on that side.
That's right.
So, and what about yourself?
Well, you mentioned short-term rentals, and I keep thinking I'm a note guy, obviously, first, but I think it would be really nice to have a vacation rental, short-term vacation rental somewhere close, in a hot spot. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously you're in this space a lot more than I am. It doesn't seem to have maybe too much of a down season. And it seems like the appreciation of the real estate in those areas, they have a stronger chance of growing consistently year over year. Am I wrong in thinking that, or is that?
Absolutely. And when you're in true, vacation rental, beach, mountains, that's where people want to be. Yeah.
I'm thinking beach. Mountain would be cool too, but I see in warm spots, like I know in the past I've mentioned that I go to Charleston, South Carolina quite a bit. And it just seems like, the temperature is really good all year round. And it seems like there's so many beaches down there that it's almost like, I hate to say you can't lose, but it seems really hard to not have a positive cash flow down there. Obviously, I would want someone else to manage it, like Elizabeth, that would be, local to that area. I don't think I'd want to manage it myself, but it just seems like it would be strong. So I think that's what I would want for Christmas is some, at least a vacation rental. And selfishly, I'd like to use it as well.
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny that you say that, because I literally just got back from a conference in California, and we've had a lot of my colleagues that are in vacation rental areas, especially the beach area, where their owners, because they've had so much appreciation, they've either sold them and the people that are buying them are moving into them. So they've lost inventory for the vacation rental side, right? So what does that do? That makes all the prices go up because there's less inventory, right? It's classic supply and demand. Mm-hmm. So it's exactly what we've seen. But along those lines too, one of the presentations was, okay, things keep going higher and higher and higher, but how long can we expect to be able to continue to increase prices? So it's, there's always that balance as well. But no matter what, Justin, to your point, absolutely, people want to be in those areas, and the appreciation just continues to increase.
So when I get into these situations where I do have physical property, Elizabeth, I know that because I have my note investing background, there's a stronger chance for me to what I call exiting out of the deal and just becoming the bank on it. And so I envision kind of maybe getting one of these going. And if I decide I don't want to own it anymore, I can sell it with seller financing. Is it, and Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong if you don't know this answer or heard of these stats, but do you think that the vacation rentals that we're talking about, the ones that are set up for more short term, do the buyers of those rentals, do they typically pay cash or do they get debt on them? Or do you know the answer?
Excuse me, it's completely dependent. So my clients are the same way. They're either paying cash or they're taking debt, and that's across the board with the other property managers that I've spoke with as well.
Do you think it's 50-50?
I would say just from my inventory, it's probably 70% debt, 30% cash, maybe
Okay.
65-35, but right around in there.
I'm going to dive deeper into this question here. Of those 70% that take on debt, are the 70% versus 30%, we're going to put them into two categories here. The 70% that take on debt, do they get more real estate than versus the ones that pay cash? Or is that a number that you're not aware of?
Do they get more? What do you mean?
So I guess what I'm getting at is the ones that take on debt, are they holding their cash back and spreading it across several properties with down payments and getting debt for all of them? Or is it the ones with cash just have a larger amount of capital to work with and they're buying more properties all cash?
It's the ones with cash that have the larger capital.
Okay. And so they're buying more real estate than the ones that are taking on debt.
They're buying larger properties.
Larger properties. Okay.
Yes.
Not necessarily more properties, just larger amounts of properties.
Correct.
I'm sorry, larger in price.
Yes. Yes. Very, very large in price.
Okay.
So, for example, we have a new client. They're going to close on it. So they're brand new to us. It's over $700,000 house. So they're buying strictly for vacation rental here in Indianapolis. And they already have a portfolio. I think their realtor told me they have 6 or 7 traditional rentals right now. And now they want to get into the short-term rental game.
Okay. So did you say 700,000?
That's correct.
For one property?
Correct.
So I want to get into the numbers of this. This may not have been the purpose of today's conversation, but I kind of want to know this because I'm interested.
Sure.
So on the $700,000 property that's going to be short term, I assume is that a seasonal property? Is it a property that can be occupied year round?
It can be occupied year round.
Okay, that property, the management fee is how much of a portion of the gross cash flow coming in monthly?
25%.
Okay. And then there's taxes that need to be paid. There's insurance that needs to be paid. I assume it's long-term insurance and short-term insurance, or is there such a thing?
There's a special designation for short-term rental insurance.
Okay. And then is there a holdback cost of they need to be holding back of their monthly cash flow in order for incidentals and okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, we do not have a holdback. So they also have to pay utilities, which is not the same as a traditional, and then Wi-Fi, which is anywhere from $40 to $50 a month.
So you said utilities aren't necessarily like a traditional. What do you mean by that?
Oh, just that the homeowner has to pay the utilities on a short-term rental, whereas a traditional, the tenant is responsible for that.
Oh, okay, right. Because there could be there's water, electric, and then sometimes gas, and then the waste, storm water, I guess, could be one, or could be bundled into the regular water utilities, and then trash services and stuff.
So actually in Indianapolis, the city of Indianapolis, our property taxes includes the trash removal.
Nice.
So we're paying for it. It is not free, but it's not a separate bill.
Okay. I remember one property that I owned personally in Fishers, Indiana. It was an eye-opening experience from going from another place in Indianapolis where I just had electric and a water bill, and the water bill included the trash and the sewer and stuff. So I had two bills that came in monthly, and then I went to Fishers and I had, I think, about five bills. I had a trash company bill, which was trash and recycle. I had an electric company bill. I had a water company bill. I had a gas bill, and then I had, along with the water, it didn't come included, but I had to pay a different city department, if you will, for the stormwater waste and the sewer.
Wow.
So that was interesting. I went from two to five, and I don't know if that's a common thing for most areas. So I'd be curious if anybody wants to put in the comment section if they're listening to this podcast or they're watching it on our YouTube channels, BrightPath Notes YouTube channel, Elizabeth Maora's YouTube channel, and just see if you've ever experienced more than five, we'll call them utility companies, for a property you owned.
For a single property, right?
A single property, yes, a single property. If you've done more than five, I would be curious to know what others, whatever costs are out there.
Great. Yeah, that's a really great question. And because every municipality is so different. So, it's kind of funny. We have four new houses right now that we're bringing on, and excuse me, it's always whenever you do the closing, especially now because it's the wintertime here in Indianapolis and we're having freezing temperatures, my clients have to get those utilities turned on. They either need to be turned off or they need to be turned on so we can get the heat on and keep it going because we don't want any any frozen pipes.
Yeah, I can imagine the when you have that turnover quickly. So is that something that a property management company would provide as a service, is to help get those on, or that's the responsibility of the rental property owner?
That's the responsibility of the owner for us anyways. I think probably everybody's a little bit different, but
Mhm.
because the bills stay in the name of the owner for the short-term rentals, it's just easier if they set everything up.
Okay. Do you take the responsibility or offer the service, and compare it to most other property management companies on taking care of, like, securing the property, and if it needs to be winterized, knowing it's going to have a longer term vacancy, maybe due to repairs, or maybe it's just not set up yet for occupying? That's something that you guys do too?
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. And
I say
actually,
that 'cause-
go ahead.
I was going to say, I say that because when you mentioned winterization, I'm actually, is a property I've had to take back in Michigan, where I've had to quickly go in there and winterize and secure the property from a distance from here, from Indianapolis. It's an interesting thing because I don't have any control over it. I have to rely, excuse me, I have to rely on vendors and other people that are local to the area to help me out.
It's it's so much easier in the summertime, right? Because we don't it doesn't matter how hot it gets, but in the wintertime it matters how cold it gets. And actually, just kind of along our theme of all I want for Christmas, we took on a new client where we're going to be going to his property every week. It's not a short-term rental, it's their primary property here in Indianapolis, but they're going to be out of state for the wintertime. So excuse me, so we're excited to take on that project. It's just kind of interesting how your business can continue to evolve and you know offer new services for clients.
That's great. I have a question about that.
Sure.
So someone is a snowbird, maybe they leave to a
Mhm.
different state for 2 or 3 months during this colder season, and they want to, like you just said, rent out their home to somebody for their short term, or maybe, what's the term we used the last couple episodes, was the longer short term stay. What kind
Exactly.
of risk are they taking by doing that? Like, I guess for me, I would have fears of my home, my personal home, being just kind of ran through and ransacked, if you will, or maybe some damages here and there. Is that just the inordinate risk that you just accept when you do that?
No matter what, that's a risk. I mean, guess we screen them as best we can, but they're
Yeah.
still going to do whatever they're going to do. But
Right.
actually, and I apologize. So this client, we're not going to put their house on short-term rental or traditional at all. We're just going to be going every week, checking different things out in
Oh,
the property, walking the property, flushing toilets, that type of thing.
okay, that makes sense. That's a nice service to offer, because then you have the peace of mind of knowing, okay, I'm not. I don't have things that are static in there. Someone's checking on it. If an animal is, tearing into something, at least it would be caught sooner rather than later before damage occurs. But that makes total sense. So if someone's gone for more than a couple of weeks, that would be a good service to have somebody come by. If you don't have family or somebody local near you to check on the property.
That's right. And, we're going to be on call for, excuse me, for their security system. And, that way I can send somebody out if we get a call on something, and they can go enjoy their winter time down in the warm weather.
Do they forward their mail to where they're going?
They do not. So we'll be getting their mail. We'll be getting any packages that, that get delivered on the front porch. And what we're going to do is we'll have a check sheet that obviously one of my teammates will go and they'll check everything as they walk through the property, and, and we'll upload that so that our client can see, okay, yes, for example, Sherry was there on January the 2nd. These are all the things that she checked. This is what we found, where everything's good. So they'll have that checks and balance too, where they can see, okay, what day did we actually go? And that's a good, you need that documentation anyways, as the service provider, that yes, we were there this date. This was what we checked.
That's awesome. I'm learning a lot. I'm getting more comfortable with the short-term space, Elizabeth. I'm serious about my goal is to get one, and then just sell it with seller financing if I feel like I don't want to keep it longer term.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great Christmas present. I'd love to unwrap that.
Yeah, it'd be a very large bow.
That's right.
Fit under a tree.
It brings a whole new, that Lexus commercial where they put the big red bow on it.
Oh yeah. Rolls up in the driveway.
Exactly. So we've talked about big things for real estate. Justin, what about stocking stuffers for all you want for Christmas?
Stocking stuffers for real estate. Let's see. I would like to get, instead of a larger note, I would like to get more smaller notes. I feel like I have a couple of small IRA and college accounts in our kind of family retirement, and we need to spend maybe less than 10,000 here, 15,000 there. And it's like when those accounts, it'd be nice to have those accounts be ever evolving with smaller loans, I guess. And so that's what I would like to see for Christmas as a stocking stuffer, is a couple of opportunities to lend on our smaller amounts of money.
Excellent. Okay.
Yourself?
I want notes in my stocking. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I'll take a lot more notes, and I would love to do some hard money lending or some lending. That would be pretty awesome. So some certificates for that.
Yeah, it's easier for folks like us in our seats, because we're so active in real estate, to lend or to know how hard money lending works, and making sure it's working over and over and over again, instead of having that, what I call that yield drag time, where you may lose a couple of months of your money not doing anything, and then you kind of lose the ROI opportunity from there. So I agree. I think it's easier for folks like us, but if someone's really passive and wanting to be on the lending side of things, short-term or hard money, what we call it, I think it's a little challenging for them if they're not in real estate full-time. Maybe they have a full-time job doing something else, because to turn over your money to recycle it in a short-term fashion, it becomes work, right? Mm-hmm. And you know that, Elizabeth. But if you're active in real estate, it's obviously easier, because we're seeing more opportunities than other people would that aren't in real estate full-time.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely a lot of opportunity for the Christmas time and for gifts, right?
Right.
And too, just keep in mind in real estate that which we talk about this a lot, is having a qualified CPA that knows your situation, knows how you need to invest your money, or what you need to be doing with your money to decrease your tax burden. And there are some people, for example, one of my buddies, he needs to buy a new vehicle before the end of the year. That's going to help him out on his taxes. So just keep in mind, we're right at the tail end of the years, but so make sure that you have talked with your CPA, and if there's only going to be a few days left, but if there's something that you can do to do it, to get it in on 2021 taxes.
That's a great point. If folks that are listening and viewing didn't know already, it's always a great idea to have your tax planning probably at least 2 times throughout the year. Probably, after the first couple months of the new year, and then probably a couple months before the end of the year, just so that your CPA can kind of see what's going on with your books. And if they see you have an amount of money sitting over here not doing anything, they may have ideas or suggestions of being, hey, if you thought about this, we could lower this and then gain you some more here. So it's always a great idea to have that tax planning if you didn't know already. I didn't realize that when I first got into real estate, how important it was for the tax planning, and they kind of hold you accountable too. In my opinion, the CPA does, and can say like, hey, you're steering yourself down a way that's going to be more difficult during tax season, or it's not going to be advantageous for you. You mentioned somebody wanting to get a new vehicle by the end of the year. I hear people say that a lot, but I often question if they really need a new vehicle, or if there's a different way that they can put their money to use to lower their tax liability. So I know in certain situations it makes sense, especially if they're we'll say like a trades person, like maybe a landscaping company, because they're always needing equipment, they're always needing something, and so if they have a newer vehicle or a newer truck to pull their equipment around, like that makes sense. But if it's like a business owner like you and I, sometimes it may not make sense for us just to be like, okay, we need to get a new vehicle before the end of the year, right?
Right. Totally depending on, your CPA and what they recommend, how you spend that money. I have other ways. I want my money to
Yeah.
make money, not depreciate. Um, but there's reasons for everything.
All right, Elizabeth, end of the year's coming up. What, for our listening and viewing audience that are kind of doing what we are doing respectively in our real estate seats, and the ones that don't really know, what is the end of the season look like for the real estate that you're in for the short-term rental? Is it very fast? Is there a lot going on? Is it slowing down? Is it just dependent on if there's a big event going on nearby?
It's fast and furious.
Fast and furious? Is it that all year round, or is it
No.
just hit certain pockets?
We've got the holidays and some big events here in Indy, so that's why the ending of the year and the beginning of the year start up pretty fast, and then they ramp down real quickly middle of January through the end of February.
So it's pretty consistent. You can expect that to be a slower period, and I'm sure you do something different during that time period to, offset any sort of revenue that you're expecting. Right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. At the end of, I'll say September, is when we start seeing a lot more movement with inventory, okay, as far as like the bigger hedge funds, the bigger players. In a fund, that fund has a timeline to it, or a time horizon. And at some point, that fund has to divest itself of all the investments to pay back the investors with a waterfall and stuff. I think we've discussed this before, but that's what I see towards the end of the year. And it's kind of exciting because you may not have heard from somebody in a while throughout the year, and all of a sudden be like, hey, we're closing down our fund, and we've got, maybe 25 notes that we've got to sell. And you may pick up a pretty good deal, or if they're sending it out to a lot of people at the same level like me, then you may not be getting a great deal, but you do see inventory that comes through that you can jump on that otherwise wouldn't have been available. So at the end of the year, it typically moves a little quicker. We do see people that have money to deploy and they want to deploy it before the end of the year. So we definitely see more activity during this time until the end of the year, and it rolls a little bit into January, but then definitely February is a slower period. And then things pick back up pretty regularly at the end of March and April and stuff. They start swinging into full mix.
Very nice.
So we have that common downtime, if you will, that February-ish time frame.
Which is a great time to take a vacation and get a little rest from the previous year. And as you're ramping up for 2022 now, since we're going to be in 2022.
I know, I'm just getting used to writing things 2021. I have to change it to 2022 now.
Exactly.
All right, rapid fire questions here. We're going to end the episode. What's the biggest thing you've learned this year, or the biggest realization you learned this year?
Oh, gosh, there's a lot. I would say the biggest thing, though, is read below the lines. So basically, so do your own research.
Yeah.
That's mine. How about for you?
I would say we all know how to underwrite a deal, but underwriting a seller or a business partner or a buyer, depending on what end you're on, I think is the biggest lesson learned. There's a great trust factor and there's a like factor, but then when it comes down to inking your name on paper and then reading through any documents or last minute changes with agreements, you find out very clearly how this relationship is going to unfold after you sign that documentation. So I would say biggest realizations this year would just be really underwriting the person you're doing your business dealings with.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Absolutely great point.
So oftentimes people are too trustworthy, which is great, but there's a saying that Ronald Reagan would say, and it's trust but verify. So you can always trust your counterpart. It's just you just need to verify it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to verify all the information.
That's right. Read those read those contracts. That's for sure, and make sure you understand them.
Yeah. So for example, I'll just give a quick example is when I'm buying, we call a seller finance paper from a mom and pop. So someone that's just not really a real estate investor, but they have a piece of property and they sell it with seller financing. They don't know what they don't know. They may use a title company. They may use an attorney. They may try to use an LLC. So what we've been religious about doing is checking the validity of the person, especially when they're like an LLC or a company, to see if they have signing authority on behalf of the LLC. Because there could be a husband, wife, there could be multiple partners in a business, but not all of them may not have the proper operating agreement to show who can sign for it or all of them can sign for it. And so it's been really important that you know who can properly sign on behalf of a company. We'll talk about that, or like a trust, so that if anything were to happen in the future, you don't have to go back and revisit this problem and try to get the correction of signatures. And because if somebody didn't have the authority to sign a real estate note over to me, then that transaction might not be valid. Mm-hmm. And I could potentially lose all the money that I invested into it. Because it's as if it never existed and I just gave somebody money. So it's just really, I've never heard of anybody having a horror story like that, but it is something you want to be aware of. Check to see who has signing privileges.
And with that, we wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas. I'm Justin Bogard with BrightPath Notes.
And I'm Elizabeth with Elizabeth Maora.
All right, guys. One more episode left.
Woohoo!
Or the end of the season.
That's right. Thanks, everybody.
The Two Wealth Show is produced by Justin Bogard and Super E, sponsored by BrightPath Notes and Elizabeth Maora. Thanks for listening and watching our show.